The fashion world was not ready for what happened next. At first, it looked like just another airport appearance. Another quiet walk, another casual outfit, another fleeting moment captured by cameras and fans. But within hours, that moment detonated across social media, fashion forums, investor discussions, and global pop culture timelines. And at the center of it all stood Jungkook of BTS, effortless, magnetic, and unknowingly rewriting the business trajectory of one of the most iconic fashion houses in the world. What followed was not merely a viral moment, it was a financial earthquake. And the biggest surprise of all, the designer behind Calvin Klein emerged as the unexpected second winner, quietly reaping staggering profits from what fans now call the Jungkook effect. No official press release announced it. No grand campaign unveiled it. It began organically, almost invisibly, the way true cultural revolutions often do. Jungkook appeared wearing a Calvin Klein piece, clean lines, understated confidence, the kind of styling that looks simple but impossible to replicate. Within minutes, clips circulated, screenshots multiplied. Fans zoomed in not just on Jungkook's visuals but on the fabric, the fit, the aura. What was he wearing? Where could it be found? Was it new? Was it custom? Was it sold out already? By the time the brand's internal analytics teams woke up, the numbers were already climbing at a pace no algorithm had predicted. Search volumes for Calvin Klein surged globally, not just in traditional luxury markets like the United States and Europe, but explosively across Asia, the Middle East, and South America. Keywords pairing Jungkook with Calvin Klein dominated trending lists. Online stores experienced traffic spikes so sharp that some regional servers briefly lagged. Certain items, previously considered minimalist basics, vanished from shelves in hours. Behind the scenes, executives were scrambling to understand what had just happened, because this was not a planned launch. This was not a scheduled collaboration drop. This was not a celebrity endorsement with a calculated timeline. This was pure influence, raw and unfiltered, radiating from one artist and cascading directly into consumer behavior. And while Jungkook's name dominated headlines, another figure quietly stepped into a new era of success, the designer at the heart of Calvin Klein's creative direction. For years, Calvin Klein had been known for restraint, for elegance without noise, for a kind of cool that whispered rather than shouted. In an era obsessed with maximalism and shock value, that philosophy sometimes seemed risky. Critics wondered if minimalism could still compete in a world driven by hype culture. Investors asked whether subtle design could survive the speed of modern fashion cycles. Jungkook answered all of those questions without saying a word. When fans analyzed why the moment hit so hard, the answer was deceptively simple. Jungkook did not look like he was wearing a brand, he looked like himself. The clothes did not dominate him, they followed him. The design framed his presence instead of competing with it. That alignment between artist and aesthetic was what transformed a single appearance into a global catalyst. Fashion insiders began calling it perfect resonance. The designer's vision and Jungkook's image locked into place like two frequencies harmonizing. Sales reports soon reflected what social media already knew. Revenue from key Calvin Klein lines saw dramatic increases. Items associated with Jungkook's look, sometimes identical pieces, sometimes merely similar silhouettes, experienced sell-through rates that surpassed even the brand's most optimistic forecasts. Retail partners requested emergency restocks. Secondary markets exploded, with resale prices climbing to absurd levels for items that had once been considered accessible staples. But the real story unfolded deeper inside the company. For the designer, this moment validated years of creative discipline. Every clean seam, every neutral palette, every refusal to chase fleeting trends suddenly paid off. The aesthetic that some had labeled too quiet proved powerful enough to ride the loudest wave in global pop culture. Industry analysts began describing the designer as the second biggest winner of the Jungkook phenomenon. Not because Jungkook benefited less, his influence was already immeasurable, but because the designer's creative credibility skyrocketed overnight. Invitations poured in, editorial profiles multiplied. Other luxury houses began watching closely, trying to decode what Calvin Klein had done right. What they found was not a marketing trick, but a philosophy. The designer did not chase Jungkook. The brand did not mold itself to him. Instead, it stood firm in its identity, and when Jungkook stepped into that world, the alignment felt inevitable, authentic, almost fated. Fans sensed it too. Comment sections filled with emotional reactions, not just about Jungkook's visuals, but about how the clothes made them feel. Words like confidence, freedom, and timeless appeared again and again. Many fans admitted they had never paid attention to Calvin Klein before. Others confessed they had always associated the brand with a different generation until now. Jungkook had not just refreshed the brand's image, he had reintroduced it to an entirely new audience. As the days passed, the ripple effects grew stronger. Fashion YouTubers dedicated entire videos to analyzing the look. Stylists broke down why it worked so well. Business commentators discussed the financial implications of unplanned celebrity influence. And through it all, the designer remained a figure of quiet fascination, rarely speaking, rarely explaining, letting the work and the results speak instead. Internally, Calvin Klein's strategy meetings took on a new tone. The data was undeniable. This was not a spike, it was a shift. The Jungkook effect had extended the brand's lifespan in the cultural conversation, pushing it forward years ahead of schedule. For the designer, contracts were renegotiated, creative authority expanded, trust deepened. When a brand experiences a moment like this, it often reshapes internal power structures. Visionaries gain leverage, designers become architects of profit, not just aesthetics. And yet, what made this story so compelling was how accidental it all felt. There was no grand announcement, no dramatic reveal, just Jungkook being Jungkook, choosing comfort, choosing simplicity, choosing something that resonated with who he is at that moment in his life and career. That sincerity is what fans connected to, and that sincerity is what turned fabric into fortune. Observers began asking a quiet but powerful question within industry circles: what happens next? Because moments like this are rare, influence of this magnitude cannot be forced or replicated easily. Brands can spend millions chasing it and never come close. Calvin Klein, through a combination of creative clarity and perfect timing, found itself at the center of a cultural storm it did not manufacture, but was perfectly built to receive. As weeks turned into months, the effects did not fade. Calvin Klein remained a staple in fan discussions. Jungkook's past and future appearances were scrutinized with heightened intensity. Every outfit choice became a potential market mover, and the designer's name, once discussed mainly among fashion insiders, began appearing in mainstream conversations about power, influence, and modern branding. The financial reports that followed confirmed what many had suspected. Profits surged, brand valuations strengthened, market confidence grew. The designer's work, once measured primarily in aesthetic impact, now carried undeniable economic weight. Yet perhaps the most fascinating element of all was the emotional layer. Fans felt like they had witnessed something organic, something real, not a commercial transaction but a moment of alignment between an artist and a design philosophy. That feeling fueled loyalty far stronger than any advertisement ever could. In the end, this was not just a story about clothes, it was about presence, about authenticity, about how one artist's quiet choice can ignite a global chain reaction. Jungkook did not announce a revolution, he walked into it. And standing just behind him, benefiting in ways few could have imagined, was the designer of Calvin Klein, proof that in the modern era, the greatest profits often come not from shouting the loudest, but from being perfectly ready when the world suddenly starts listening. The Jungkook effect did not merely boost sales, it rewrote expectations. It reminded the industry that true influence cannot be scripted, only earned. And as fans continue to watch, analyze, and celebrate every detail, one thing remains clear: this story is far from over. Because when Jungkook moves, the world watches. And when the world watches, brands change forever.